Success is not linear. It is not a linear process. And I've been thinking about that quite a lot lately in my own journey, whether it's on social media or financially or whatever you're doing in your life and your career. It is never a linear process. Never has been for me. But that's when you have to start identifying trends in your life and noticing if things are on an overall upward trend. It really helps, too, to cope with the slumps in your journey. Like when things are not going as well, like the views are down on social media, for example, or your business isn't making enough money, to identify that overall in previous months and years even, that you are on the upward swing. And that even though you are going through a temporary slump or setback, you've been here before and it's all too familiar. And so you know that statistically it's probably going to end soon and you'll be right back in the good place. There's very little we have control over in this world, notably with our own levels of success. We can do things to nudge it in that direction, sure. And I think a person that works really hard is obviously going to be in a better position than one that doesn't, with some outlier examples, of course, people who have inheritances and Nepo babies and people who got the long end of the stick when they were born, let's put it that way. But for the rest of us, we're kind of left to our own devices to make ourselves successful. You can put out positive thoughts and vibes out into the universe, insofar as you believe in manifestation and that sort of thing. But you are not in control of the timing of things, certainly not. You need to get comfortable in the journey instead of constantly anticipating the destination. Because we all want to arrive at the good place with all the prosperity waiting for us, but these are things that have been repeated ad nauseum by so many other people. And I didn't think I would be repeating the same things as cliche as it's not about the destination, it's the journey, But as I've been on my own journey, I'm starting to realize just how true those cliches are. And you really start to see it. And there's some comfort in that, to derive some comfort that you are not treading new territory necessarily. Maybe in what you're doing with your craft and your art is new territory, but what isn't new is the path to success that many have walked before you. And it's so important to heed their advice because they know what they're talking about because they walked the path. And everybody's definition of success is certainly different. There are some commonalities, of course, like being financially stable and not, going under and becoming homeless. I think that's shared by almost all of us. But beyond that, we have very different levels of success as far as like material success and what truly makes us happy, how many houses and cars that we really need. I've thought a lot lately about how mega wealthy people seem to enjoy working more than the average person, because if they didn't, they would retire and they would enjoy their overwhelming amount of money and just kind of coast off of that until their final days. But they don't seem to do that very often, do they? Especially the mega wealthies like the Bezoses and the Musks of the world. They never stop. They just tirelessly build and work. And it's an interesting thing to witness because so many of us hate to work and hate working, period. And for many of us, the ultimate goal is to just make enough so that we can exit the rat race and enjoy existing. But it seems like these mega wealthies have actual addictions to what they do. Like they're actually addicted to working, which is curious. It's a peculiar thing to be addicted to because so many of us have an aversion to it. Anyways, I just wonder why people need 12 different cars and 3 different houses. I often wonder about this, and I wonder too that maybe once you reach a certain level of success, your psychology shifts and your expectations shift, and maybe people who originally just wanted to be able to pay their bills and pay off their house, maybe once that happened, they moved on to bigger desires that they couldn't anticipate, like wanting a dozen cars, which is not something that I think most of us give much thought to. But also I think it has to do with hobbies and different interests, things like that. Because if I were that wealthy, I would be spending that kind of money on computer-related goods and the best computers and technology throughout the home and things like that. That's where my passion really lies. And so maybe it boils down to that. I didn't set out to make a video where I dwell on people with 12 cars, but it's a fun point to linger on. When you're trying to become successful on social media, you have to just barrel towards it relentlessly and just assume that it's going to happen and work tirelessly every single day and post like your life depends on it, because sometimes it just might. If you want to make it a business and you have little else to fall back on, it just might. And so you need to take it extra seriously and just assume that success is around the corner. I truly believe in the law of assumption, assuming that things are real before they actually materialize, because I've seen it happen in my life numerous times. I think there is some logic behind it. And it's also just practical, right? Because the harder that you work towards something, the more likely statistically the outcome will be in your favor. And so it's very interesting when people talk about this law of attraction, law of assumption, which is that it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It kind of like it kind of like becomes real through action, but is also explained away in an esoteric sense. It's like two things are true at once, it's very interesting. I used to visualize a lot my success that came later on Instagram. I used to think about what it would be like when I had 500,000 followers, 700, a million, 1,000,005. I used to think about it, and then it materialized, but I also worked tirelessly towards it. It was a combination, it really was. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. If you're not visualizing what you want, how can you expect to arrive? I mean, you could stumble into it accidentally, but really, what are the odds of that? If you're not moving towards the target, or at least even trying to, statistically, you're never going to arrive at that target. Period. So constantly fantasize about what you want out of life. Constantly fantasize about it, but don't get lost in the fantasy. Work in tandem with that fantasy, because they're partners, you see. They're co-workers. The fantasy and the worker, they work together, and they produce magical results. Yes, it's very fun to manifest, and it's very fun to finally see it happen to a skeptic, somebody who was previously skeptical, to then show them that yes, this is possible, and it is done throughout the day constantly without us even thinking about it. But once it becomes intentional, boy, it's another game entirely. It becomes a video game. It becomes fun. And that's the point after all. We just want to have fun while we're here. Fun is the antithesis to boredom, and boredom is the worst. Boredom is the lowest plane possible as far as I'm concerned. And so embrace your fantasies and don't run away from them. Don't be afraid of them. Understand that they're there to serve you, but they alone cannot serve you. Does that make sense? They're there to remind you of where you could be and where you will be if you just intentionally act towards it. So just bring it forward, and don't even think of it as a woo-woo thing, even though it actually is a woo-woo thing. You don't have to think of it in those terms. That's the beauty of it, because there's a lot of people, I'm sure, who have succeeded who aren't even spiritually minded or who don't even think about this kind of thing at all. In fact, I'm sure of it. I know a few. But that's the beauty of it in action, is that it's self-evident. As you work hard towards a goal, it happens more often than not. It does beg the question, do you have to intentionally visualize the outcome? Or can you just blindly work towards some supposed outcome and still receive it? Maybe they're both the same thing. Even when we're not consciously visualizing something, a goal or something, we're still unconsciously working towards it. I just think personally that when you deliberately visualize, fantasize, it only strengthens the experience. It helps get you there quicker. That's what I'm trying to say. And another thing is that you don't have to be precise with your fantasy. And the expectations don't have to be exact. I think you can loosely fantasize about having a level of success and then later on receive it, even if it might not look identical to your fantasy. It's still success. And as I stated earlier, success comes in many forms. I think it's useful to not be attached to the fantasy as far as the granular details of it. Like if you want a really specific amount of money, I don't think you should be tied to that specific number, but maybe the ballpark is what will eventually manifest. You'll land in that ballpark. In fact, you may even end up with more money than what you fantasized about. But to not get so wrapped up in the minutia and the details of what you're fantasizing about, it is fun to construct that fantasy in the mind. And perhaps on some level you are glimpsing into a parallel reality there. But as you reel in the reality of your desire with your fishing rod, your cosmic fishing rod, don't expect that you're going to reel in that exact parallel reality into yours. But perhaps a very similar one will come about, and that's just as good, isn't it? I think also it's more about like the sensation of what it feels like to reach that level of success versus the technical aspects of it. If you can feel that happiness that you're going to feel when you arrive, I think that's perhaps the most important thing of all. It's a fun game trying to simplify and demystify this process, which has long been spoken about by some of the greatest minds and success stories in history, but said in different ways. But to identify the commonalities, the common threads throughout all of their experiences. And I think one of those common threads is to feel the success. Not just think or visualize it, but to feel it. Feel what it's going to be like to have that money, have that bag, have that security. It's not even just money, it's security. That sense of relief that will come about once you're actually there. Hold on to the feeling. In many ways, I'm kind of speaking to myself here, as well as to y'all, but I really want to drive this point home that I think there is something real, something there inside of all of this dialogue to be taken away and practiced. Go forth and practice exactly what I'm discussing, because I think your life could change pretty dramatically. Mine certainly has in the last year versus all of the other years I've been here on earth. It's been like a different life entirely. But you know what I also did is I brought God closer into my life. And I know that not everybody believes in God, but I truly feel that that is at your detriment. I think even if you don't deeply believe in God, to behave and act in a way that you do and to speak it into reality, just to humor the idea. You don't have to actually, at least not at first, believe in him per se, but to play the part, play the role as somebody who does believe in God, and then to see your life change in different ways and allow those changes to slowly over time convince you of the realness of God. I think there's no better way than to inoculate someone with a belief in God than to show it happen in their life in real time. Yeah, I think God is real, and I think he's here to help us. I really do. And there's a lot of days where I forget that, but on the days that I don't forget that, those are beautiful days. And anyways, that's all I have for you today. Take care.